Holy Spirit.
Amen.
This morning, we hear that wonderful parable of the sower who went out to sow. And I have a tremendously fond memory of this parable. It takes me back 20 years to when I was working with a bunch of Eagle Scouts. And I gave them as their senior project, finding a parable and illustrating it by the way of a commercial on VHS tape. Remember VHS? This young man picked the sower parable, made a robotic sower with this little arm that would fling seeds, and he sent it down the path in his parents' garden. And some of the seeds, sure enough, fell on the stones, and some fell on grass, and some fell in the garden. And he had this little sign labeling the robot, giving it a name called Preachmaster 2000. And he had a great booming voice, this guy, and he concluded the VHS with the words, "Preachmaster 2000, spread the good news of God." It was just a great, creative, wonderful way of doing this. And I had R2 back then as well. And I think being a robot, R2 remembers that. Do you remember David and his parable of the sower? R2? He does. He does. It's a very, very fond memory for R2. And R2 likes to sow things as well. One of the just remarkable parts of this parable is the different ways you could go with it. Ask questions. I mean, is the sower us? And are we sowing seeds of God's kingdom? Or is the sower God and the seeds are us and we're supposed to be growing? Or are we the soil the seeds are falling in and we're supposed to cultivate our lives in a way that grow the seeds that are put there? You can just see how many ways you can go with this. The way I'd like us to approach it today, though, is to make what can be a difficult acknowledgement. And to acknowledge that we are sowers, we are seeds, and we are soil. Now, that's a responsibility to be a sower. It's an opportunity to be a seed. And the difficult acknowledgement is that as soil, you and I sometimes are not receptive. We have rocky parts in our lives from time to time that are not conducive to growing God's will for us. We have thorns that come up in our lives and as part of who we are that can threaten to choke out God's word, that God has to struggle and those seeds have to struggle through. And yet sometimes we also have good, receptive, positive places where the beloved community of God is just radiating through us and we are radiating it into our world. Life is diverse. Life's challenges put us through many places in many times and give us many things to deal with. So as disciples today, how do we make the best use of those many places that we find ourselves? How do we help make the rocks a little more conducive to sowing seeds? How do we cultivate seeds even in those thorny times in our lives? And then how do we rejoice in those good times in which the seeds are growing? These are all excellent questions. And they came to a bit of an epiphany in my mind this week when I remembered back last month to an address given by our Chief Justice, John Roberts. at his son's middle school graduation. Some of you may have heard it. His son graduated from an all-boys school, middle school in New Hampshire, and it was a great, great honor, I'm sure, for them to have Chief Justice Roberts there, Chief Justice Roberts Jr. for the graduation of John Roberts III from Camden Mountain High School. And this is a bit of piece of some of the most eloquent wisdom I've heard recently. So I thought we'd put us all back in middle school. Terrible place to be, right? This is what he wrote. He said, "Commencement speakers often offer good luck and best wishes. I'm not going to do that today. From time to time, in years to come, I hope you will be treated unfairly, so you will know the value of justice. I hope you will suffer betrayal, for that will teach you the importance of loyalty. Sorry to say, but I hope you will also be lonely from time to time, so that you don't take friends for granted. I wish you bad luck, again, from time to time, so you will be conscious of the role of chance in life, and understand that your success is not completely deserved, and that the failure of others is not completely deserved either. And when you lose, as you will from time to time, I hope your opponent will gloat over your failure. It is a way for you to understand the importance of sportsmanship. I hope you will be ignored, so you will understand the importance of listening to others. And I hope you will have just enough pain to learn compassion." He goes on, "Whether I wish these things or not, they will happen to you. And whether you benefit from them or not will depend on your ability to see the message in your misfortune." Commencement speakers also give advice, some grand advice, some useful advice. The most common advice is to be yourself. An ironic piece of advice for all you young men sitting out there dressed identically. You have been in a school of all boys. Some of you will be going on to a school with girls. I have no advice for you. But remember, unless you are perfect, it does not mean don't make any changes in your life. Don't just be yourself. Try to be yourself and something even better. Great advice for middle school boys heading out to a new school. Wonderful advice for Christians, acknowledging the many places we find ourselves and trying to be a part, always, of the beloved community that God intends for creation, for our neighbor, and for our souls. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, R2, go on patrol.